All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our session. So I'm Melissa. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zipline. Similar to many of you, thank you. I was like, that's for wearing a heel today through NRF. So if you see me and I'm stumbling, you know why. So similar to many of you, I actually spent over a decade in retail, specifically focused on retail communication and execution. And Marc was going to be joining us today, but unfortunately he has COVID. But we were able to record a session talking about what we were going to do today around strengthening the store footprint. So before I play the video about the discussion, I just wanted to ground everyone in on, the background around how we began engaging with American Eagle, and also a little bit about Zipline. So just as a baseline for those of you, I think most of you know American Eagle, but they have about 37,000 associates, about 1,200 locations. When we first met them, they were struggling with a lot of things that I hear across the board from some of you today, right? From a store employee standpoint, there was little visibility into direction, there was little accountability, adoption was hard, there was low employee engagement. And, I think when I think about the true pain point, right? It's something that we all have kind of experienced, is just having disassociated store teams. So I like this picture because I think it tells a story, but also the hard part about it is I think that sometimes it's not that our store teams are unengaged because of ill intent, it's because we just haven't set them up with the conditions for success. So that comes to us. So what do? So Zipline helps keep everything and everyone on track, right? From store rollouts to new customer service behaviors to planograms and marketing setups, we really help reduce the disconnects that happen across the organization, from C-suite all the way down, because I know all of you here, you're probably here because you've experienced a lot of spin in the org, a lot of updates, and we help reduce that friction. We do that by bringing everything into a one-stop shop for everyone, from resources to tasks to messages, surveys, store audits. We have a very unique philosophy around the way that store communications and operations works flawlessly in an org, and we wrote a book about it. So we'll be doing a little bit of an overview about that philosophy and approach, because American Eagle really kind of mirrors how we think about the store environment. For background, we have about 100 of the world's best brands today. Some of our customers here, thank you for supporting us through our journey. And now I'm just going to zero in on Marc, who's the VP of Associate Experience and Customer Care at American Eagle. We're going to play the video because he unfortunately wasn't able to join us, but we hope you enjoy the discussion.
Marc, thank you so much for joining us today. I have to have a true confession. I have always loved the way that American Eagle jeans fit. And also on the side, I'm like a leggings girl. So Aerie.
You're an offline leggings girl?
Leggings still are my favorite, even post-COVID. Talking about COVID, I feel like so much has changed in the past years and accelerated both about how we, in retail, think about the customer experience and then how we support that. And I think it's really unique. I think you're actually a really great example of how brands are keeping pace with changing consumer needs. And I'd love it if you could actually tell me more about your role and how you're bringing kind of different worlds together.
Well, first off, let me just say that I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to be there, but thank you so much for introducing me and having me virtually. I am Marc Lambo. I am the Vice President of Associate Experience and Customer Care, and my role at AEO is really focused on creating a one-of-a-kind experience for two audiences. We have a focus on the people who work in our stores, which is our internal customer, and then we have the people who shop in our stores, which is our external customer. And while those may seem to some very different concepts, they're very interconnected. And, I've worked in retail for 24 years. Can you believe that? 24 years.
13, good.
Thanks. 13 of those years I was in stores. And I must say, building and maintaining an in-store culture has always been very important to me. And so when AEO decided to kind of merge those two worlds of associate experience and customer care together, it truly was my dream job. It was created in that moment, which is so awesome. The other thing I'll tell you is, the main reason I feel that way it's because I believe so much in just the simple philosophy of always listening to your customer. I believe every decision that is made should always start and end with the customer. And really, when you think about it, the internal customer is the extension of our external customer. So when a customer walks into our store, we want them to feel AEO Inc. We want the core values to just shine through and come to life in such an organic way. And that shows up through our associates' ability to create meaningful, memorable experiences that are always connected to the brand just as much that they are tailored to the customer. So,
Totally.
yeah, it's really as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something so authentic that comes from human interaction that can't be replicated. And from like a culture perspective, there's no better way to like really ingrain a way of being with your team than setting that cultural foundation.
Yeah, for sure.
So Mark, you and I had talked like for a really long time.
6 years now.
I know. And I think a lot of the things that really serve us a lot is really the role that communication plays in actually creating this vision around an authentic and amazing customer experience that keeps on bringing people back, right?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, especially like in the tech world, sometimes people think it's like more robotics or, that creates this experience. But I know that, in our conversations, you have a strong belief that communication is really the conduit and that creates the powerfulness and the stickiness. Can you talk more about that, about the role?
Communicating effectively and efficiently internally to create positive, meaningful experiences for our customer is basically the foundation of what our team does, right? So effective communication, that's key. So effective communication, it clearly defines, you're always going to find opportunities and issues or problems at hand that hopefully will eliminate wasted time, but it also enables building relationships, teamwork, and honestly, what I think is most important is trust. So, just the other day I was scrolling TikTok like many of us find ourselves doing at 1 o'clock in the morning. And, I came across this video where there was a leader and she was talking about the amount of decisions that people make in a day. And that average person is making 35,000 decisions in a day. That's kind of insane, right? So, of course, I had to fact check that after I was like, there's no way. And you know what? Google told me it's true. When I think about 35,000 decisions someone has to make in a day, that's obviously going to vary of topics, right? There's going to be inside and outside the workplace, and it's going to be anything from deciding, what the flavor of coffee that you're going to order for the day or what you're going to wear, or prioritizing one task over another. Well, when I watched this video, I felt a sense of responsibility and I felt a sense of ownership. Because our job as effective communicators is to streamline and simplify how we communicate to remove as many roadblocks for our team's decision-making process. So, in turn, they can be present for the customer, right? And one of the things that I always say to my team is take the thinking out of it so that they can solely focus on the customer. And I mean, listen, our job as communicators and communication teams, it's tough. It's really difficult to do. I mean, there's a number of reasons, right? There's the pure volume of content that needs to be communicated. There's finding a way to make the communication engaging. There's need to know versus FYI, right? And so it's pretty complex. And our internal customer, if they truly are, as I said, an extension of our external customer, that needs to be nailed, right? The other thing I'll say is when my team set out to accomplish this I said 6 years, you and I have been doing this together. When we set out to accomplish this then, the platform we were currently on could not meet those expectations. They couldn't meet the vision that I had, that my team had, my head of stores had. We need a solution that gathers, distributes, and targets information in the right way to support holistic learning. But more importantly, we needed to work with a team of people that could see the vision that we all could see to impact positive change. enter Zipline.
Thank you. Well, we're so thrilled to be your partner and to enable strategies and bring them to life. I think, like, personally, when I think about our role as a vendor and a partner, it's really to bring your vision and strategies to life in an easy way for your store teams and for your team. And I think a lot of times stores have really good intent, or most of the time, I'd say. But what kind of distracts the strategies from being implemented is that there's too much communication in too many different places. You're like drinking from the fire hose. And so I see our job is really cutting through the clutter and helping people prioritize and understand how to prioritize and what is really going to make a difference to the business.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you've had a great experience partnering with us to help you and able to do that.
Yeah. And hey, you make us look good.
You guys are an amazing partner. And I think, when I look across and I think about, the many, many brands we have, I think you guys have done such an exceptional job really setting a foundation, right, for effective communication and store experience. And I'm curious, like, can you talk about how you set that foundation and kind of like how you think about that?
So, everyone has heard about the golden rule, right? You've heard about it?
Mm-hmm. Like, I tell my 4-year-old that all of the time.
Yeah. Treat people how you want to be treated. And in theory, that sounds nice. But in my opinion, that approach is a bit out of date. And I once had a good friend, a trusted friend, I would say, tell me that the world is not your mirror. And that really hit home for many reasons. When you think about our job as communicators, as leaders, more importantly, as humans, it's about seeing people for who they are, and it's about treating them how they want to be treated, which may not necessarily coincide with how you want to be treated, as the golden rule states, right? So when you think about today's world where technology has paved the way to omnichannel communication, there are people that would prefer to not have one-on-one live conversation communication with each other. They want everything done online through a website or text. But then you have people who want to converse with real people. So one of the ways that we do that, is through embracing learning styles. And I am really passionate about learning styles. And if you were to look up learning styles, you may find there's some people go with 7, some 10. I've seen up to 25 different learning styles. Well, effective communication and effective learning are really one and the same in my eyes. But when you do have a responsibility to people like we have, 45,000 people, and communicating and moving all 45,000 into the same direction, simplifying and individualizing communication is the way we've done that. But we've taken it to 3 learning styles: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning. And while these are customized and tailored communication, this is what empowers our associates to be able to articulate our brand voice to every customer. But the key is it's in their own words.
I think, that's the store operators and communicators challenge, is like meeting people where they're at. And I think that's one of the things that I've always really appreciated about your learning philosophy, is that you need to meet your people where they're at. It might not be where you are, right? But it's how, store, part-time associates are going to be learning very differently than we are.
Yeah.
How can we reach them through a learning style? And then on our end, how do we have a technology that enables you to do that and that meets people where they're at? Because we need to bring the ease of consumer technology into the enterprise world. Otherwise, people just won't use it.
Totally.
And, talking about like different types of learners and different personas, I know you guys have a global scale, right? And I always think about, like, you set the foundation and then you scale for success, right? But it seems really hard. And I'm curious, what has your experience been with that? And how do you scale to all the different countries and different people?
Yeah, it's definitely about scalability, but I think first it's about flexibility. And flexibility to truly achieve those the growth, as you mentioned, the reaching of the goals and the consistency to meet that global scale, I have to always start with, in order to have flexibility, do we have a consistent feedback loop in place? So if we do, then we can help prioritize and understand the level of urgency to communicate, right? And this is what will help us or any organization be more agile, because I said 45,000 people, we got to move forward, right? Moving teams and experiences forward and meeting them, like you said, where they need to be met. That's where our success is rooted in staying focused on the execution of the vision. So, look, you may see brands that have this grand vision, but they lack the ability to execute. And when you have the feedback loop in place and you're listening to your customer, the answers are literally right there. And making your customer, for us, the internal and external, a part of every single decision, scalability becomes really easy when you know who you're talking to, right?
I mean, I love that. I mean, at the beginning of our conversation, you were talking about really listening to the customer, right? To help drive decision-making for their experience, the external customer, the shopper. And here, right now, you're talking about to ensure the shopper experience, you're listening to your internal customer, right? Or like really being in support of the field. And, we're happy to help be part of what's powering the feedback loop, which is ensuring better strategies and decision-making on your end for both, right? Because you can't have one without the other. You talk about 45,000 people.
I know, I'm like obsessing over 45,000 when many communicators have more than that.
But it's a lot of people, right? I mean, sometimes it's hard to get your team to do things. It's like a small group of people. How do you move that amount of people? And how do you communicate with them every day successfully? Because that's a lot of people.
It's process, it's consistency. I think we have a very strong process in place to review the quality of our content. We do this through having a monthly dashboard in place. And, with that dashboard, your partnership and your team gives us the statistics that we need to help us understand the many different KPIs. But there's one KPI I would say I'm most passionate about, and that's readership. And readership, it's telling us how valuable someone views the content that we're communicating. And if we have a category of communication, like we'll say operations, and that has low readership, our communication team works together with our content owners. We identify the problem, and listen, it could be a series of problems. We could have the timing in which the communication is being cascaded is wrong. It could be the quality of content, meaning the message is too long and the workload hours associated with it are completely off, right? The list, it could go on and on. But it's our job to get to the root of the problem and solve it. Because what I love about what we do is we have the beauty of doing it again and again and again.
Groundhog Day.
Right? We always have that opportunity to do it again. But when you are inconsistent over and over again, that's when you lose the credibility, and that's when readership starts to deteriorate.
Totally.
And honestly, what's way more important and what's way bigger than that is that the belief in your brand from your teams, they could start to diminish.
Yeah, I hear very clearly, right, how in touch you are with your communications and operations and how it's resonating with the field and translating to the customer experience. Sometimes I think that's really hard to do, right? Hence like ivory tower, syndrome or, analogies. But yeah, I think, it's just great to hear that close connection. Talking about close connections, like one of the things that we aspire to do as a company is to be an extension of your team, right? And you talked about going through with our team to look at best practices, or, if you're going through a communication, restart or revamp, like leaning on us to be a partner to you. How has that experience been for you in terms of partnership?
Honestly, one of the best things I think about our relationship is we are truly partners. And we're partners and we have the same mission, right? To improve communication. And your team has really been with us every step of the way. When I joined the communication team, you were one of my first calls, right? And our team, we meet weekly. Well, you and I don't, but our team does. And, they've been instrumental in growing not only just our readership, but also our communication strategy as a whole. I think a better way for me to explain it is through kind of an example that we had recently. Earlier on in the year, we were kind of in a position where we weren't meeting necessarily some guidelines concerning how we were communicating in a specific market. I won't give you too many details there, but I got a phone call from a regional director that made me kind of aware of this. And I will be completely honest with you, this specific issue was not my forte. And I called my communications manager, and they called their Zipline partner to really just understand if anyone has experienced something like this previously. And your team made one call. They made one call to a retailer that you obviously work with, and you made a connection for us that there was really no benefit to you in that. And you truly, again, treated us like a partner, and something I thought would take, honestly, an entire year, it was done in a matter of weeks because of our relationship and trust that we've built. And your team has just been incredible in that way for us. So thank you again if I haven't thanked you previously.
Aw, thank you. I mean, that's really meaningful to me and to us. I mean, I always had felt like store operations and communications are so underserved. And I feel like we're always so heads down. I mean, IT too, but everyone's like always heads down, supporting the business, hustling, pulling things together, making changes. And I see one of our jobs on the other side of the fence in the tech piece. It's about building connections and community and knowledge and information, right? Being able to be your eyes and ears so that you can focus on the business. And when you ask about like, what are some trends that are happening and how people are communicating, or what do we see effective in terms of socialization or rollout? Like, we can help be a partner in that, because we're not reinventing the wheel each time. Like, we have the best practices, we have the people, we have a lot of the industry knowledge, and we know some of the pain points. And, I think technology is only as good as like the people that support it. So I'm really glad to hear that we've been such a good partner to you. But like talking about like ease for IT, I know there are a lot of people at NRF from the IT world that are interested in AI and are thinking about the application of AI across the business. And I'm actually curious, like from your standpoint, like looking over customer experience and stores, right? What are your thoughts about AI?
Yeah, so I mean, I do believe AI is going to help us with some decision making. I think it's going to help us with the ability to provide stronger relationships, deeper understanding of our customer. Even beyond the customer, though, AI can help us build human connections. So human connections, human interaction, I don't believe is really ever going to go away, but I do think it can improve through technology, right? So if I look at it through the lens of customer care, customer service, the average customer tends to communicate now through chat and email over phone. So if they have an issue with an online order, I'm making this up, or a previous purchase in general, I believe AI could potentially help provide our customer care agents with more information to advance their human connection, to allow for a more effective way to better the customer experience, right? And by the way, this will likely improve handle times for those customer care agents, customer satisfaction ratings, technology as a whole, and what it can provide to better the customer experience, I do think is pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of how you see AI improving like the internal and external customer experience. I think one of the things that we see is that AI is only as good as the data, right? And so like, how can you get like really good data to provide the best insights? What I'm excited too for us with the volume of customers and best of breed brands like AEO that we have is the ability to see and surface up kind of like benchmarks of best practices, right? To see what's working in different locations. like Southern California, for example. I think what's also really exciting for us around the potential of AI is something that you brought up earlier around learning styles, because I think it's so hard to cut through to 45,000 store team members in a way that they really understand. Like, just take credit card. It could be like credit card. Someone could be talking about private label. Like, maybe you have your own internal, there's so many acronyms in retail, right? People don't know what you're speaking about, especially if you're new. And I think that there is a better way to conversationally connect and coach people on an individual basis based off of their role, based off of their store location, based off of the data and insights that we have to produce a well-run store that's generating better KPIs for the business. So I think that there's a huge potential, and I think it could help us leapfrog the industry forward in terms of really helping people achieve their goal in a way that meets both the internal and external customer. Okay, so last question. I am curious, when you're all about this enhancing the store experience, right? And we've talked a lot about philosophy and how you've approached it, but what role does technology play?
Well, in life, I believe in balance. I think that, I don't believe in having technology for the sake of technology. And there was a time where we were at a place where we eliminated most physical tools in our stores, but we swung the pendulum it's way too far, in my opinion. I think a little bit, as I mentioned earlier, and you just mentioned about learning styles and communicating, training to the individual. At the end of the day, what we want are customers for life. And that sentiment extends to both our internal and our external customer. And to make that a reality, we must continue leaning into it and learning from communication strategies and tools that create or help us create the best culture possible in order to continue moving the brand forward.
When you think about customers for life, which creates a lot of brand loyalty, I think the hard part for all of us, especially in this time, is that so many things change, right? And technology needs to be an enabler of your people and your strategies, because what works today might not be the same answer tomorrow, right? Think about TikTok, that didn't even exist a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, right? So to your point about flexibility, right? And meeting people where they're at, they'll always be there, right? But all we know is really that change is constant. So I want to thank you so much for joining today. I'm so sorry you weren't able to be here in person, but thanks so much for taking the time to answer questions for the audience and join us.
Thank you for having me, and have fun.
All right, check. Great, we can hear me. Hi, my name is Jeremy. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Zipline. Want to give it a shout out again, especially since it's recorded. Thank you, Mark, for recording that. That was wonderful. Wish you could be here. You're missing out on a lot of fun. As you heard Mark talk about, right, our goal in everything is to partner really closely with our customers, and we learn a lot from them. And we've now been doing this for quite a while, some combined 20 plus years now of retail experience of working with our customers, and then Mel's experience at Old Navy. But specifically what we've done from there is we've extracted a lot of principles about what it takes to deliver on these really amazing store experiences. And we want to share some of those with you here today. So at a high level, we've broken this down to what we call the 5 principles of amazing retail execution. The first one that we talk about is creating an aligned organization, right? This sounds obvious on some level, but for any of us who've worked heavily in retail, you know how unaligned sometimes those organizations can be, right? People asking questions in the hallway about what time were you in the meeting? What time did you hear that? Because it's different than what I heard at a different time. Those disconnects and that misalignment can cause a lot of chaos in the organization. And while that might be troublesome at headquarters, it's especially hard in a field organization where it's a lot harder to just reach out and get feedback immediately from your district manager, or where a district manager might walk into one store, see a test set up, and then think that's really cool, and then take it to the next store where they're not supposed to be a test store and ask them to set up a display that they're no longer need to set up because they're not part of that test, thus invalidating the entire test and control group. So that alignment is really, really specific and really critical, right? Who needs to know the information? When do they need to know it? How do they need to know it? Where and when do they need to see it so that everybody can be on the same page? The second principle is about creating intent-based communication channels. Oftentimes we see organizations put everything into a chat tool, right? You've got your reference material, you've got your back and forth conversations, you've got your need to know information. But when everything is in one place, it makes it everything is in one tool that's not structured for its purpose, makes it a lot harder to understand where to go when you're trying to get something specific done. So we try to look at it as what we call the 4 types of communication. You've got your nice to know information, letter from the president, new store opening, celebrating wins, the stuff that's really engaging and informative, but not necessarily business critical. You've got your need to know information. That's your product pullbacks, compliance, legal, regulations, business changes, merchandising, marketing, those types of things. You've got your reference material, your evergreen content, SOPs, trainings, guidelines, opening, closing procedures, all that. And then what we call dialogue, discussion, and debate. That's the back and forth conversation between people in a store, across stores, up and down from headquarters to the stores and through the field. Certain products, like we've seen people put everything in SharePoint, which is much more of a reference material tool, right? If you try and shove a bunch of reference material stuff into there, but then also layer on the nice to know, and then also put in the dialogue, discussion, debate in a separate tool and structure that all out, the channels can get really blurry. And then people start throwing one instance of a copy into a chat when the reference material updates somewhere else. And those communication channels, when they get blurred and confusing, cause a lot of breakdowns. So intent-based communication channels where people know where to go to get the clarity about the information are really critical. The third one is sending the right message at the right time. So we've all kind of seen the 2-week cadence of communication, especially if you're scheduling for New York or California with the regulations. Being able to set up a 2-week newsletter that goes out and thinking that we'll send the updates via email later, or we'll get on a VM call in every Thursday, and chunking that communication up just isn't enough anymore. Business is moving way too fast, and the thing that we figured out is that if you make the information availability more rapid, those changes that happen, because of a shipment delay the day before a promotion is supposed to go live, aren't as disruptive because they just become part of the flow of information in a much more effective way. So breaking apart this bi-weekly chunk where people have to go spend 4 hours in the back room on a Monday morning to understand what they need to do for the next 2 weeks is really important to be able to allow organizations to move faster. We like to talk about what we call our day sheet, which is an organization of everything people need to think about that day. And as people start to change their behavior to focus on this day sheet, they're able to start thinking that their role is to get everything done on the day sheet every single day, and what we call keep today on track. When the behavior changes in that direction, you can actually put things on the day sheet the night before, or even sometimes the same day, with a high likelihood that they get done. So when you have this 2-week communication cadence, that just becomes impossible. And if you break that apart into something more rapid, you're able to get a lot more done. You also want to target the message to the right people. This at this point should be just table stakes across the board, but with certain tools, you're just not able to do that. People have to filter through their own, they get one big Excel file and they have to go find somewhere in that Excel file the information that's relevant for them. Breaking that up again and being able to target using something like mail merge, the right information that's pertinent to them, directly to them, so they don't get confused and it's easier for them to find it, is really critical. And that level of targeting is absolutely required to get them to the right place. And again, that last thing I said is just that optimization for change, right? We've all been through COVID now, where some of our stores had to implement plexiglass on one day in one district and stickers on the floor in another district. Change is happening faster and faster, as we're all aware. And if you optimize your communication system for change, you're gonna get just much happier employees or internal customers, as Mark refers to them, because it's not something that's so disruptive when things are changing. It's just part of doing business. The fourth piece is empowering the workforce. And the first bullet point we have here, get out of inboxes, is really critical. And this isn't so much about saying don't use email, as it's about the idea of a silo, right? When you have everything going to, say, a single store manager, but the assistant manager is not able to see it, or the associate who's opening that day because both the assistant manager and the store manager came to NRF, You've created something that prevents people from actually getting their job done, which is, we all know, can be very frustrating. So getting out of this idea that information is for one person and into an area where information is for everybody, where they're handing the baton back and forth to get things done in every location, is really critical. Also, giving people context so they know why something matters. Why am I being asked to put the shoes on this display today instead of tomorrow? Why am I being asked to fill out this survey that doesn't seem to pertain to me today and it might not be important? The context and understanding of what makes this request so important is really critical. If you just give your stores a task without the context, they're going to prioritize on their own and figure out what they think the importance of this is. But with the absence of context, they're not able to really look at the bigger picture and make something work. Third, making it easy to find. I have a store manager at Lego. We go to a lot of our customer store conferences, and I was at the camp in Virginia that we went to with Lego, and gave a little talk similar to this, talked about what we do and how we help. And the store manager, she ran up and gave me a big hug right away. And I was kind of taken aback and be like, oh, hi, like, you're obviously very excited about this. She said, before Zipline rolled out, I started as a store manager and I was nervous about whether or not I was going to be able to do a good job. They asked me to go get a file off of our intranet. I spent 3 hours trying to find it. And then I went and I sat in my car and I cried because I felt so futile at how good I was at my job. And with Zipline, I can find things like that, and you have totally changed my life. That's just search, man. It's not rocket science. But if you make things hard to find, it has real impact on real people every single day as they struggle to just do the things you've asked them to do. And that's a big part of our philosophy, is that it's not necessarily that technology is the solution here, but man, it sure can get in the way unless it's done right. And so the idea of making things easy for people to find, or making it easy for them to access, so that they have the clarity about what they need to do and how to get it done, is really, really important. And lastly, making it clear and making it matter, right? Inundating your store teams with a bunch of stuff that might not pertain to them, or not making it clear about why something matters, really reduces the likelihood that they're going to be engaged and they're going to want to get things done for your organization. When we talk about empowerment, we've heard a lot of people talking about engagement, right? And how do you engage them? Well, first you have to make really funny GIFs, and then you have to make it all gamified, and then you have to do all these other things, right? But it turns out for a lot of our customers and a lot of the industry studies that we've done, engagement is much more simple than that. People need to understand why their job matters. Period. Why does it matter that I'm doing these things? Then they have to understand what the organization is looking to do and what they can do to make that impact in their little role, right? If you're looking to change the culture of your organization or roll out a new product or new something, every single person in the organization has a role that matters in that step, and just making it clear what they can do to make that impact or make that difference is really critical. And then you have to give them the autonomy, authority, and information knowledge to be able to get it done. The most disempowering feeling for an employee is being asked to do something and then having no way to actually get it done because they either don't know how, or they don't have access, or they're just not able to because the systems are broken, right? So engaged employees understand what the organization is trying to do, they understand what their role in it is, and they can get it done and feel that success in their role. That empowerment drives so much of the success for our organizations. I can't overstate it. Fifth, and lastly, you have to measure the execution. You heard Marc talk about this a little bit, right? That feedback loop of we actually understand our readership. We understand which categories are not getting the readership we want. We know which regions or which districts are struggling with either information. We can have accountable conversations with them on how to change that behavior and how to improve it. I come from a background of technology. I led innovation at Yahoo for quite a while, and we did a lot of A/B testing. And the idea of A/B testing is you test something, you don't test something in another market, and then you see the results of that. If you are not able to actually see the results of anything you're testing, either because only a third of the stores did the thing, so your test data is failing, or because you really have no way to know if it got done in the first place, you're not able to make faster decisions. And so the key of this measuring the execution is actually getting that flywheel working in a much more effective way. So you can send down something, have a high confidence they got it done, look at the numbers, and then make changes and do that as fast as possible, whether that's on marketing promotions, whether that's on the way you communicate to the teams, whether that's on your fun, engaging social activities that you do and your DE&I initiatives, right? Understanding the impact they have really starts with making sure that it goes to the teams in the first place and making sure that they've received it. Also, the idea of letting people see the outcome, right? Understanding that you're asking for their feedback and you're implementing changes. With a faster feedback loop and a faster communication system, they can feel the reality of that very, very quickly. And then just doing that over and over and over again, getting better every single day, every single week, every single quarter. Okay, so those are the 5 principles that we focus on. For a lot of our customers inside of retail, that it ends up being really, really valuable. Not just in terms of really high customer execution rates, 92% is dramatically different than the 30% we see across the industry, but also that turnover rate. Our customers have exceptionally high retention rates across the industry, partially because of how engaged the teams feel and how clear their job is and how they're trying to get things done. And then the funniest one for me is some of our customers pay for the entirety of Zipline just from their printing costs alone, because they're reducing the amount of printing they're doing so dramatically that it's saving them printer, ink, paper, support, all of that stuff. So all these different numbers, depending on where you're looking at, can go up just by implementing these 5 principles. It's not even about rolling out Zipline as much as about doing these 5 things really effectively. Now, Zipline is a tool, as Mel mentioned earlier, takes a lot of these features and combines them into one easy-to-use solution that separates information properly, organizes it for the store teams automatically, and delivers it in a way that they can understand and they can adopt and learn very quickly. We have 48% less time to launch initiatives with this. It rolls out very quickly. We've done a number of rollouts in as little as a few weeks for our customers globally, and it solves a lot of these problems. But we don't want to tell you that you have to roll out Zipline to get a lot of these wins, because we, as Mel mentioned and as Marc mentioned, our goal is to serve retail primarily. Don't tell our investors, our goal is primarily to serve retail. It's not even to grow the business as big as possible. We want to make the most populous job in America a lot easier to do, and we want to make it a lot more fun to do. So we have done a lot of that so far for our customers with a net promoter score of 90. Our G2 score is the top of the charts. Lifetime customer retention is really high. A lot of our customers are signing 5-year renewals after rolling this out. Support, people love us. I love this quote from Ross at VisionWorks. His partner Eric is here with us today. But also, you can do this without Zipline. You can do this with other tools out there. We took a lot of this information and we wrote it into a book here called Stores Don't Suck. And it's very useful for you, but it's especially useful for communications and operations teams to give to their CEO, to understand what is so hard about getting these stores to do the things we're asking them to do every single day. Because it's not that the stores don't want to do it. It's the way it's delivered, the way it's communicated, and the way it's prioritized breaks down through the endless disconnects in the field. This book has a lot of best practices. It is free. We have them at our booth at 5157. And we have Mel and myself here if you're looking for it. Lastly, we do have other sessions where the people have shown up. Tomorrow specifically at 10:15 in 3, we have 3 people from Travis Matthew, VisionWorks, and PacSun, hi, who are going to be doing a panel just talking about what they do to run their stores and how they get such great store teams. It is not going to be a pitch with another white guy up here talking about technology. But we'd love to have you. We have tons of events, and we have customers in our booth today from those brands and others talking about how much they love using Zipline and what they do with it to run their stores. Thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great conference.